He started to talk up after his wife calmed down.
この村には大昔からある病気があるのだ。それはこの地にだけある特別な病気、風土病というものらしい。
Oh.
それにはこの村に住む者が全員かかっている。今この村に住んでいる者だけではない。大昔から住んでいたご先祖様たちもみんなずっとこの病気にかかってきたのだ。
そんな。だって私たちはみんな普通に生活していますよ。この村だけの病気なんて聞いたこともない。
落ち着きなさい。その病気はな、この村にいる限り何も問題はないのだ。だがこの村を出て遠くの地へ行くと発病してしまう。わかるか？
わかるわけないでしょ。何のことだかさっぱり。
お社様のたたりと同じなのです。
Rika said it so calmly while her mother became frustrated.
そうだ。この村から離れるとたたりがあるのと同じなのだ。つまりお社様のたたりだとご先祖様たちが代々恐れてきたのはこの村だけにしかない風土病のせいだったのだ。
そんなことあるわけないです。だって私たちだって時には村を離れることもあるじゃないですか。村の人だって仕事で遠くへ出かける人だっているし、海外に出かける人だって。
うん。それは長い時間を経て病気が徐々に弱まってきたかららしい。だからこのままさらに長い時間をかければ消えてなくなってしまうものだったのだ。だがそれがダム戦争のせいでおかしくなったらしい。ダム戦争で今村中が熱に浮かされたように興奮している状態にあるのはみんなも分かっているだろう。そういう興奮状態や情緒不安定な状態はこの病気を悪化させてしまうらしいのだ。
You know, I'm actually surprised that Rika's dad is going with this.
よく話がわかりませんけど、つまりこの大昔からたたりだと呼んできたものはすべてその病気の仕業だとおっしゃるんですね。
そうだ。お社様の作った決まりはすべてこの病気から村人を守るための決まりだったのだ。
そんな。それじゃお社様は神様ではなく病気が正体なんですか？そんなこと古出家代々のご先祖様たちに説明できますか？
落ち着きなさい。お社様の信仰は変わらない。お社様がHinamizawaを見守ってくださることに何の変わりもない。お社様のたたりを再現する病気がこの村には大昔からあったということ、それだけなんだ。
そんなのは認められません。そんなこと亡くなった先代や先々代に説明できますか？古出家数百年の伝統に対する、いえお社様に対する冒涜です。そんなことをあなたに吹き込んだのは誰ですか？失礼極まりない。大地、そんな変な病気が実在するという証拠があるんですか？
ある。
それはどんな？誰が？
厚生省と国立感染症予防研究所の方からだ。病原体もすでに特定され、現在治療方法などを研究している最中だという。先週実際にその資料や標本などを見せてもらった。厚生省の方はこの病気をHinamizawa症候群と呼んでいるらしい。
そんな。
Hinamizawa症候群は普通に生活している分には何も影響のない無害なものらしい。だがHinamizawaを遠く離れたり、精神や情緒が不安定になったりすると発病しやすくなるという。発病すると妄想などに取りつかれ、最悪の場合異常行動に出ることもあるらしい。
You know, I did joke about Rika hearing this kind of talk like over and over for like hundreds of times, but I won't be surprised if this is actually the first, like, in the past, this was the first time that Rika ever heard of this to begin with. And then this is where it all begins with her being like a patient and going along with the experimentation on the Hinamizawa syndrome. That's how she got to know Irie and Takano so well at the Irie clinic as she visits the clinic like all the time with Satoko.
この病気は戦争中に発見されたんだそうだ。戦地でHinamizawaの兵隊だけ異常な病気を起こすことがあるのに、偉い学者の先生が気がついて、研究がずっと進められてきたんだという。その辺の話はだいぶ詳しくしてもらったんだが、難しい内容だったので、私の口からはこれ以上うまく説明できん。もし私の説明では納得できんというなら、お前も直接話を聞いてみればいい。私だって最初は何をバカなことを、お社様を冒涜する気かと憤慨していたのだから。その病気を研究するために入江診療所が作られたというんだ。あそこは表向きはただの診療所ということになっているが、実際は病気を調べるための隠し研究所らしい。
秘密で研究しているなんてうさんくさいじゃないですか。それも厚生省がやっていることなら堂々とやればいいじゃないですか。
いや、そうはいかんらしい。この病気の実態を把握しないまま存在するという事実だけが不十分な知識で広まってしまったら、病気を持っている人たちはもちろん無関係の人々も勘違いした差別を受けることになる。Hinamizawaの人間は皆怪しげな病気にかかっていて、そのせいでとんでもないことをするかもしれないなどという噂が日本中に知れ渡ったら大変だ。厚生省もそのことを心配していて、この病気については厳重に伏せた上で治療を目指すらしい。勘違いするな。私たちを見せ物にするというんじゃないぞ。この病気を根絶させ、この村を病気から解放しようとしているのだ。自給自足ができていた大昔ならともかく、現代では村から一歩も出ずに生活など成り立たん。村から出るだけで発病するかもしれない病気など、村人にとってどれほど危険なものかわかるだろ。繰り返しになるが、昨今反ダム戦争で村全体が強い興奮状態にあって、Hinamizawa症候群にとって非常に良くない状態にあるらしい。
もし村人がおかしくなって大変なことをしたら、きっとマスコミがパシャパシャでいっぱいなのです。
そうだ。そうなったからでは手遅れなのだ。
そんな、いきなり言われても信用できませんわ。本当に相手は国の人？変な詐欺に騙されてるんじゃないですか？
信用できんのも無理はない。先方は研究所はいつでも見に来ていいと言っている。私はもう見せてもらっているが、あれは詐欺とかそういうレベルではない。ゴングラの大病院でもあんな大掛かりな設備はないぞ。お前も私の話に納得できないなら、研究所で詳しい話を聞かせてもらうといい。私よりもっと詳しく説明してくれるだろう。向こうは研究所の説明でも納得できないなら、東京の国立研究所で説明してもいいし、厚生省の本庁舎で直接説明してもいいと言っている。
でも信じる信じないは別にして、それが私たちにどういう関係があるんです？
古出家は代々お社様の血を受け継ぐと言われている。そして8代続いて女子が生まれれば、その8代目はお社様の生まれ変わりであるとも。
そうですわ。
That's right. You.
私が7代目、リカが8代目。でも それとその病気に何の関係があるというんです？
うん。このひなみざわ症候群という病気はある種の寄生虫によるらしい。虫といってもものすごく小さい、人の目には決して見えんくらいに、その虫たちには親分格がいるというのだ。
まさかそれがフルデ家だとおっしゃるんですか？
その親分格の寄生虫は代々フルデ家の直系だけに受け継がれるらしい。つまり先代はお前、今はリカだ。
バカバカしい。そんな話やっぱりおかしいですわ。大体ですね、寄生虫なんてそんな気持ち悪いもの。
だから落ち着きなさい。私では説明が下手だ。専門の人に説明を受けなさい。そして彼らが言うには、この病気の治療を研究するためには親分格の研究が不可欠だというのだ。
嫌です。そんな怪しげな研究まっぴらごめんですし、理科だってそんな研究には関わらせません。
だから落ち着きなさいというのに。彼らの研究ではひなみざわ症候群は村から離れると発病するのではなく、お前も小さかった頃、村人から陣痛力があると言われていたことがあるだろ。遠方に出かけ片頭痛などにかかったお年寄りがお前に払ってもらうとたちまち頭痛が消えたという陣痛力、それこそが親分格の証拠でもあるというのだ。フルデの血には発病者を救う力がある。それを研究するのは治療薬を見つけるためにもとても重要なことなのだそうだ。
僕を研究すると村のみんなが助かるのですか？
先方はそう言っている。
その病気は村の全員がかかっているのですか？僕もみんなもさとこも？
うん。村に住む人間全員だけでなく、沖宮に住む親類なども全て含むそうだ。多分何千人という規模になるだろう。それだけの大変な病気だから厚生省がわざわざたくさんの予算を投じて専門の研究所を作ってくれたのだ。
私は反対です。理科をそんな怪しげな研究の生贄にするだなんて。
僕はいいのですよ。僕が生贄でさとこが助かるなら全然平気なのです。
理科は黙っていなさい。とにかく絶対反対です。あなたにそんな妙なことを吹き込んだ人たちには私が直接会ってはっきりとお断りをします。理科を変な実験で殺されてたまるものですか？大体理科はフルデ家のたった一人の跡継ぎなんですよ。もしものことがあればフルデの血はここで絶えてしまうかもしれないじゃないですか。あなたはもっとですね、フルデの家のことを考えていただかないと。そんなだから村の人たちに日和見主義とかなんとか言われて、大体おかしいじゃないですか。建設省は村をダムに沈める、厚生省は村の病気を治す。何が何だかさっぱりわからないです。
厚生省はこの病気は環境の変化で大変発病しやすいと警告していて、建設庁に対しダム計画を中止するよう働きかけてくれているそうだ。だからお前も研究所を見せてもらいなさい。あれだけの大設備をダム湖に沈むかもしれない土地に建てるわけがない。
Rika let out a big yawn. It was long past bedtime for a little girl like her.
僕はもう寝ますです。父さん、僕はいつでも協力するとその人たちに言っておいてくださいなのです。
リカ、そんなことお母さんに断りなく勝手に決めちゃいけません。リカ、待ちなさい。リカ
Shh! She's trying to sleep. Okay. Well, there's that. Which, you know, like after this big discussion and a bit of time passing, you kind of make the mother question Rika's behavior. Because we do remember from chapter 4 that, like in the tips, that she was questioning, why does Rika note this? Why is Rika behaving like this? So I wonder if eventually she will put 2 and 2 together and think about that stuff, even if originally she was not on board with it. Alright, let's see. Next is Yagouchi's Quarry, which will be like the 10th piece. At a quarry in Yagouchi. Alright. When researching Hinamizawa syndrome, there is something very important that needs to be discussed first. If something happens to the Queen Carrier, the village will collapse. In his article, my grandfather called it the most dangerous situation. According to my grandfather, if the Queen Carrier dies, all the infected persons will go terminal within 48 hours. This may sound unbelievable at first, but research on the collapse of past local religions and group suicides around the world should indicate that there's some truth to it. Because, you know, I was questioning this, like, how would Hifumi know that such a thing would happen in the first place? It's not as if the Hinamizawa syndrome had ever had like a case like this. Otherwise, once it happens, like way in the past, there will no longer be like any disease whatsoever. Everybody would die who had the disease if the Queen Carrier dies, right? Like, when you think about it, like after the Hinamizawa disaster happens, let's say that this is true, everybody that is linked to the Hinamizawa syndrome would just die as soon as the Queen Carrier dies, and thus the Hinamizawa syndrome would disappear for good. So how would you know that? Well, I guess like if you are to look into other religions and group suicides around the world, maybe? But it's not really guaranteed. Among all the mysterious incidents around the world, there are some that were caused by parasites controlling entire communities, very similar to Hinamizawa syndrome. Grandfather picked a few cases that are very similar to the syndrome and investigated them. As a result, he confirmed multiple cases of entire communities losing their minds after the death of a religious leader or founder, and finally annihilating themselves. He stated that, on average, it happened within 48 hours. I guess it is a theory, at least. I can see that, at least, if you are to think of it that way. Even though technically it's not true. It's clear that infected people are affected by the Queen Carrier, and the condition of the Queen Carrier is, in fact, affecting the entire village. Our statistics already proved that on weeks, Rika felt sick and visited the clinic. We saw an exceptionally high number of visitors. Rika being sick with a simple cold had a massive impact. If something particularly bad happened to her, we'd be facing a serious situation within 48 hours. Well, okay. Evidence number 2 there. I guess I can see that. That's why the ED Institute has to protect the Rika food, the Queen Carrier. It's the most important mission of the Hinamizawa Syndrome Research Project. Although, I wonder if that's a coincidence. How many times did that happen? Then on weeks, Rika felt sick. Okay, well, at least it's not just one time. She's already agreed to help us in our research, but we have to be very careful not to put her in any danger. Also, we have to protect her from anyone who would try to harm her. Her life is equal to the lives of 2,000 villagers. But what if something happens to her by accident? The ADE Institute must prepare for that situation. That's why I worked on a draft of an emergency manual when the ADE Institute was first established. It's a precaution in case the Queen Carrier dies, or if infected people show acute symptoms due to the death of the Queen Carrier. This is an emergency procedure which must be followed within 48 hours of the last occurrence of the acute symptoms. The final measure is to prevent the damage from spreading to nearby areas. The plan uses gas, making it look like a natural disaster. My client, the Alphabet Project, took the responsibility of working out the details of the plan. They are used to dealing with things like nuclear and biological weapons, so they ended up with being such a big help. And there's no way I could have come up with a plan on my own to execute 2,000 villagers. Through a dummy company, the ground SDF has secured a closed quarry in the Yagouchi region, upstream of Hinamizawa. It's to be the secret storage base for the equipment we'd use in that operation. Equipment that sprays deadly gas that kills people as if they are falling asleep is stored there. In the case of an emergency, a special unit of the ground SDF is to use this equipment to destroy the village. However, preparing for the execution of the villagers itself is politically dangerous. So if I'm going to insist on them getting the equipment ready, I have to make them understand how dangerous Hinamizawa syndrome is, and also how urgent the need is to have a contingency plan. I have to prove the need for the plan by showing them enough data. So the files my grandfather kept intact come in quite handy. When the clients read my grandfather's articles about the syndrome, they were surprised to see how catastrophic things could be in the worst case scenario. Okay. So with this, it kind of makes you see why, you can definitely see Takano raising the suspicion levels very, very high and paranoia on kids like Shion and Rena, because that way, Takano herself wants to make some people of the village raise their Hinamizawa syndrome level very, very high to prove to the Alphabet Project and the SDF and be like, oh, see, you see how dangerous Hinamizawa syndrome is? I think that we should have a contingency plan. So that could be the reason why Takano has been very she was there to make people paranoid about this.
つまり女王である一人の少女に何かがあれば村人2000人以上が全員錯乱するということなのですね。
はい。Hinamizawa症候群に極めて類似するいくつかのケースでは集団自殺を示すものが少なくありませんが、Hinamizawa症候群の場合、強い疑心暗鬼や過剰なまでの危機意識から何かの過剰防衛を行う可能性があり、被害は感染者2000人にとどまらないものと推定されます。それらは無政府状態の暴動から始まり、猟奇的なあるいは宗教的終末感にも似た異常な状況を作り出すでしょう。
But here's the question though. Let me think about it this way. We've seen this contingency plan work out at the end of chapter 7. And we've seen the actions that they took in killing all the villagers. But here's the question though. Do you have a place, in the Yagouchi region, in the quarry and all that, to also store, the villagers? They take the villagers, and they put it in one place, and then they gas them and kill them. My question is, how come they didn't wait for them to see the Hinamizawa syndrome kick in after Rika's death, to see how the villagers would actually be affected and eventually start thinking of killing themselves? They could have just waited to see that, which would further prove that with 100% certainty that, yes, the Hinamizawa syndrome is bringing them to terminal stages once the queen dies and all that. They would see it in action. They would see how violent they would become, and then they would gas them. But no, instead, we actually saw them like take out the villagers like right away, even before the syndrome would kick in like more and more. They just took action like really fast. Cause you know the way I described it like right now, that is exactly what Takano would want as evidence to prove the research even more. To have them wait and see how the villagers will act, and then, you know, gas them, because we don't want all of them to be killed like that. Just to see how, like, a couple of villagers would start committing suicide, and then be like, okay, we've seen the evidence, go and gas them. Unless Takano already knows that this is a bunch of bullshit. Have I actually said this before, like at the beginning of this chapter? Because I did talk about the Queen Carrier theory being bullshit. But it kind of makes me question if Takano actually knew this. Because if she knew, of course there was no need for them to wait and then gas them. They would just gas them immediately. She knows that... Okay, maybe I've already talked about this. Fuck. So I'm just repeating myself, maybe, right over here. But either way, I'm gonna end the idea right over here that she would quickly have them gassed. Because if they were to wait and see that the villagers were fine, then that would be no good to the project. That would mean that the Queen Carrier theory would be proven wrong in the eyes of the SDF and the Alphabet Project and the Ministry of Health and the government and all that, which is no good. You kind of have to kill them before it even happens. So, yeah, from there on, we may face abnormal situations involving lawless violence and bizarre religious despondence.
これに対する事前の鎮圧策を用意しなかった場合、世界の注目を浴びることは避けられません。また、その猶予は事態発生から48時間しかありません。
So, okay, so it makes me question, are we gonna have like a fragment over here where we're gonna see Takano realize, oh fuck, Hifumi was wrong. Like she realizes as she's doing the research herself, she realizes that like this part of the theory is bullshit. But if that were the case, why would she go along with the plan of killing Rika in the first place? Well, I guess to kind of give it like a good bow on the research, making it like known to the world that it was because of the Hinamizawa syndrome. That would be like the final blow that would truly cement it in the eyes of the people that this Hinamizawa syndrome is true. But did she have to do it though? Because I still believe that the Hinamizawa syndrome is true. The Queen Carrier thing may be bullshit, but it could still be true. Maybe if they waited like a bunch more years, if they continued doing research, maybe they could have come up with something. Unless it was on a deadline, like they couldn't continue any further, so Takano had to come up with this plan of killing Rika and the village to prove the Queen Carrier thing is true and then do it like this. Like she had no choice. Otherwise, the whole research would have been fucked, and Takano would have ended up failing on this research in similar fashion to Hifumi.
つまり、いざことが起こったらもう誰にも防げないということですな。
感染者全員を48時間以内に全員治療することは不可能なのかね？
無理だろう。それに治療方法すら確立していないし、研究所の規模では村人全員の救済は物理的に不可能だ。
しかしこのような恐ろしく珍しい病気があるとは世の中わからんもんですな。
常に最悪の事態に備えることは国防にも通じますし、我々アルファベットプロジェクトの理念でもあります。そして使うことが目的なのではなく、備えることそのものが肝要なのです。
確かにおっしゃる通りですな。運用規定については決済区分の強化などまだ検討したいところはありますが、最悪の事態に対応する準備が必要だということは理解できました。
都市沈黙船の研究班に Hinamizawa地区沈黙船のシミュレーションをさせましょう。これは至急行われる必要があると思います。
こうしている間にも女王感染者の少女が車にはねられて死んでしまう可能性だってあるのですから。高野さんさ、ありがとう。また質問しますので着席してくださって結構です。
Thanks to a push from one of my backers, things were decided without too much of a problem. It took me almost all day to explain it to them, but it only took a short time to come to a decision. Nobody criticized, ridiculed, or tried to reject my grandfather's articles out of hand. In the files they're all reading today are the very same shameful articles that those haughty authorities left their footprints on as they trampled them in my grandfather's heart. But they aren't ridiculing the articles. They are reading what was once rejected. It's nothing big at a glance, but in this moment, my grandfather's research is being recognized for the first time. My heart is filled with satisfaction to see people discussing amongst each other while pointing to my grandfather's files and raising them as proof. I worked so hard for this day. Grandpa in heaven, can you see this? Well, I would be happy, but we are talking about killing everybody in the village as contingency. Ugh. Jesus Christ. Okay. Next would be Melancholy of the Shrine Priest. 27. Is this it? Melancholy of the Shrine Priest. Depression of a Shinto priest. 8, 16, 24, 27. Okay, reconcile Toko shopping trip is required. The Shinto priest contacting the deity institution is required. Okay. The gathering place inside of the Furude Shrine is in fact the headquarters of the Onigafuchi Guardians. Onigafuchi Guardians. Normally, a shrine should be a calm and quiet place, but there are anti-damp signs everywhere, making it obvious what this location has become. There are over 30 members of the Guardians here at the moment, and they are having a heated conversation about their plans for the future.
Although this meeting place is on the Furude family's property, it's a community facility, so it closes at 9 p.m. Of course, sometimes the discussion gets so heated that it goes on past closing time, but meetings are supposed to end by 9. If a discussion ends early, they usually chit-chat until that time. That's what usually happens. Of course, they mostly talk about the dam even when they chit-chat. They talk about someone's mistreatment at the government office, or someone getting arrested unjustly, or complain that people at the dam construction site are too violent. Since it's idle chatter, the topics are slightly emotional, and because of that, there was a good deal of bad-mouthing the Hojos.
そしたらさ、回覧板捨てちゃったとか言い出すんだよ。普通に考えてそんなことするかね。あそこの奥さんはさ、ちょっとこの間もさ、ゴミ置き場で牧野さんとこのばあさんとすんげえ口論してて。
だいたいなんていうかね、本当に粗暴だよね、あそこのご主人は。理性がないというか。
ああ、お前さんは地元説明会の時を見てないのかい？ありゃすごかったよ。なあ。あそこまで言うからにゃ、もう村にはおれんよ。さっさと出てけばいいのにさ。
金がもらえないのどうのこうの。あさましいったらありゃしないね。
いや、理性のなさで言ったら、あそこの奥さんも相当なもんだよ。
それで、やっぱり遺伝なのかしらね。あそこのお嬢さん、 買い物によく見かけるんで挨拶するんだけど、向こうから挨拶は絶対に返さないのよ。だから私たちバカバカしくなっちゃって、以来見かけても知らないふりしてんだから。
それ言ったらあそこの坊主もいつも暗そうな顔してるよな。
Hey, no bad mouthing the babies. By now, the Hojo family has become the enemy of the whole village. Bad mouthing the Hojo family was the greatest shared topic that anyone could easily contribute to. If he had known how powerful the three families were, especially the Sonzaki family, and if he had known Oryo-san's character, he wouldn't have said the things he did. The Hojo couple are residents here. Though they were never very enthusiastic about the council activities, they should have known what kind of person Oryo-san is. He could have imagined just what would happen to him if he talked to her that way. Yet, he let his anger take over and voiced his unpleasant feelings. So, most people think the Hojo family brought their isolation upon themselves. If they wanted to negotiate with the government regarding the move, they should have done so privately. Yet, he was foolish enough to express himself at a public gathering like that. So, not many sympathize with the Hojo family. Ever since the big fight at the explanatory meeting, the Sanzaki family has looked at the Hojo family as their enemy, and started to go after them. That caused the other pro-Dan families to go quiet, fearing they'd be made into scapegoats too, and those who wanted to leave were barely forced to give up. Even those people started criticizing the Hojo couple, saying they could have gotten their compensation to leave if the two hadn't picked up that reckless fight. Oof. Not even on the good side with the pro-evacuation guys. Like the Hojo ruined it for them too. Both the anti-Dam and pro-Dam people hate the Hojos now, and the family has become even more isolated. Moreover, the Hojos are both very aggressive. They should have stayed quiet at least until things settled down, but they didn't. Man, and they're making it sound that, and they're surely making it sound as if, like, the wife is also very aggressive. Jesus Christ. Like, Satoko and Satoshi, you sure have quite a rough family. That alienated a handful of people who took pity on them as well. So now nobody even says anything to them. All that was immediately obvious by listening to the foul talk here and there at the gathering place. Rika always helps out by putting the teacups away, so I'm sure she hears what they say as well. One of the Hojo family members they are bad-mouthing is Rika's friend, Satoko-chan. It hurts to think about what Rika feels while hearing that. As priest of the Fruited Shrine, should I let this continue? Oyashiro-sama is a god who makes peace between enemies. When the humans and demons fought, Oyashiro-sama descended from heaven and mediated between both sides. As the caretaker of this shrine, I must do something before it goes too far. I'm sitting next to Oryo-san, who is spitefully disparaging the Hojo family. No. You know, on the flip side, it seems that Rika's father is quite a good person. Yeah. Like, I can definitely see that he was trying his best to break the bridge between, like, the sides over here.
すったらんだほが抜かしおるんよ。あのボケならんしゃもあもないんかいね、ほんまに。知らんやっちゃいな。あんの裏切り者には絶対お社様のたたりが下るんね。許されなかといな。
The elderly people cheer her on as they listen to her speak. If I barge in now, I have a feeling it won't be peaceful conversation. But I have to make up my mind, as the priest of the Fruited Shrine, also for the sake of Rika's friend, Satoko-chan.
お嬢さん、北条さんの悪口を言うのは そろそろこれくらいにしませんかね。
はあ、なんね、何倍よりおるんかいな。
いや、北条さんもそんな悪気はなかったと思うんだが、あまりいつまでも尾を引くのはかわいそうだと。
しゃらしいね。おめあれを聞いちゃどんなすったらもあんとね。なあ、しゃらしい。ああ、しゃらしいしゃらしい。
Oryo-san is the head of the Sonozaki family, the heir to the demons. She never forgives anyone who stands against her. So there's no way she would even listen to what I'm trying to say. Oryo-san and the others became furious and refused to listen to me. I also mentioned that the dam construction plan will be cancelled soon, so they should calm down already. I said that because the staff of the Ariakey clinic told me that the government is putting some kind of pressure on the Ministry of Construction. But thinking that I'm being an opportunist, soon criticism of me began to circulate the room. After that, I realized that I've become branded as a fence sitter. If the demons are willing to listen, then there's a chance to make peace. It has been mentioned before that Rika's father was seen as more of a, not like a quiet type that doesn't say or hasn't done much. It has been described as such before. But how can I make peace with people who refuse to listen? I destroyed their mood, so I just have to give up and shut my mouth. And then I felt a little hand on my back.
Rika か。
What is a little one?
もう遅い時間だから家に戻っていなさい。
私たちがいくら努力しても届かない。
You know, call it like a bit of a paternal feeling, maternal feeling, or whatever feeling I have in me. But when I saw Rika right over here for a little bit and she was looking all sad, I just had this feeling of just cupping like my hands on both of her cheeks and asking her, "What's wrong, sweetie?" And then she suddenly speaks with that adult Bercastel voice, and it just caught me off guard a little bit. I was expecting her to speak in her little child voice, the way we know. Rika looked in the distance while she spoke.
このよどみ切った村の悪兵は、そのよどみに住まう私たちにはどうしようもないのかもしれない。でも、希望をなくすものか。今にきっと、こいつらを打ち破ってくれる人がやってくる。
And then Rika's father is like, "Eh? Since when did you start talking like this?"
今に、きっと。
I mean, it is nice what you're saying right over here, but this is a little bit surprising. Her eyes shone as if seeing a future that only the maiden of the fruited shrine could see. Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I guess by this point, the father is not that surprised. When Rika talks like this once in a while. Okay. Man. At least Rika's father is a very good person. Like, what happened? Like, how did he die? I don't know. Like, one thing is for sure, it doesn't bode well for me, not for me, but for him. Alright, next is Dismemberment Murder. Oh boy. We are going for something right over here. Ooh, mysterious death of the fruited couple. Distrust of the Mother Queen? Okay. 13. A murder with a dismembered body. Okay. Repetitive apologies are required. Yeah, I mean, this is it, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. When did we do like repetitive apologies? Was that like the very first one that we did? With Hanyu? I don't know, I'm just following the guide. 1979. Clang. A loud noise snapped everyone out of it. Someone dropped the shovel he was holding. Damn, you know, this is actually a little bit surprising for me. We haven't really talked much about the dismemberment of 1979, with like the 6 or 5 people that have participated in the dismemberment and all that. Hell, when did we get like details about this? I think it was chapter 1. Like we got bits and pieces of details about that, about some of the people that have run away, and then somebody was like one of the ones responsible have been sent to the hospital. There was one missing, maybe. There were quite a few details that I wrote in my notepad like a long time ago. And we haven't really discussed about this that much, like who is responsible for this. I guess now we'll get to see. The shovel was smeared with reddish black blood. No, not just a shovel. All 6 construction workers' clothes were blood-soaked, too. One of them cried out to the sound dead body of the manager, which was drenched in blood. Oh, shit! Ah yeah, the manager is the one who died in this, yeah. And it's the 6 workers here.
やっかましい。死んでるに決まってんだろ。仕方ねえじゃねえか。正当防衛だろ、正当防衛。
The fight had started after the manager yelled at them for drinking beer inside the office. There were no drinking and no smoking signs everywhere. The manager harshly scolded anyone who broke that rule, so it was the 6 workers' fault for disobeying. But they drank because they were stressed out by the anti-dam protesters. That's why they said things to provoke the manager. They told him to step out, and the others went along. The construction workers toiled hard and long hours. That's why they instigated a fight with the manager, to release their stress. Oh boy. Okay, so I guess this is it. The reason why the death of 1979 happened, of the manager, was because of these 6 workers. Because the Hinamizawa syndrome, basically. They got so stressed out to the point where they were in their terminal stages of the Hinamizawa syndrome, and thus they killed the manager. I guess if I'm to look back, another option would have been that maybe Tokyo have done something to stop the dam construction. I mean, it has been pretty much confirmed 100% that they have kidnapped the minister's grandson in order to stop like the dam construction, or some of it. And I was thinking that the same thing happened here, but no, apparently not. They had expected to just curse at each other, or to end up in a wrestling match. But things escalated. Or to put it more accurately, the manager exploded all of a sudden. The manager had to deal with the residents' protests as well, so he was under just as much pressure, or maybe even more. But how he changed was not normal. The manager was calm at first, but he gradually became more aggressive. It was like he transformed into someone completely different. No, it was like he was possessed by something evil. The men who instigated the fight sobered up when they saw his behavior. Then, the manager picked up a shovel that was nearby and tried to smash his opponent's head in with it. He managed to avoid the hit, but if he didn't, his head would have surely been split open. The manager kept pounding on him with a shovel, even as he frantically tried to avoid the hits. By this time, the workers had realized this was beyond a simple fight, so they tried to hold the manager down. Ah, I see. My memory is a little bit iffy on this one, but I think from what I remember, like the details of this was that the manager died. 5 of these workers had been caught and all that, but there was one missing. There was one more missing. I think it's this worker that died right here because of the manager. They hid the body. But then the manager turned on them with a shovel too. One of the men tried to protect himself by crossing his arms above his head. But there was no way that could have blocked a shovel swung with such force. Blood spurted out, and the man groaned in pain. By this time, the 6 men had realized the manager was not his usual self. This manager would try to bash in their brains without hesitation. Since their opponent was using a shovel as his weapon, they had to find some kind of weapon too. One of them grabbed a huge hammer. Then the others realized they needed to find something as well. To restrain the manager in that condition, it was better to arm themselves.
こんなつもりじゃなかったのに。
It didn't take that long for the madness to infect the 6 workers. It was only a matter of time before they went from restraining him to lynching him. By the time they realized what had happened, the manager was already a lump of meat. His face was swollen. Shreds of skin had been torn off and his muscles and skull were visible too. Obviously, he was quite dead.
ふざけんじゃねえよ。俺たちは殺されかかったんだぞ。こいつが襲いかかってこなけりゃ、俺たちだって反撃しなかったんだぞ。なあ。
The leader of the 6, the one who instigated the fight, tried to bring the rest of us to his side, but nobody replied. And so, the leader became frustrated. He was the one who started the fight. The rest simply joined in. He was the main perpetrator. Maybe that was why he was feeling so exasperated. He sensed that he was the one at fault. Oh.
いつまでもなよなよしてんじゃねえ。仕方ねえだろ。やっちまったもんは仕方ねえだろ。俺たちはな、もう殺人犯なんだよ。覚悟を決めるんだよ。まさかおめえら自首して懲役食らいてえなんて思ってんじゃねえだろうな。冗談じゃねえよ。無所なんかこの年で言ってられっかよ。隠すんだよ。こいつの死体を隠してすっとぼけるしかねえんだ。
Some of them knew he was on probation for an assault incident once before. So if he got into trouble with the law again, the punishment would be more severe than they could imagine. That was why he was trying desperately to find a way out. If he was alone with the manager's body, then he wouldn't have behaved this way. All he would have to do was to hide the manager's body and pretend nothing happened. But there were 6 of them, including him. Okay, never mind. I thought that one of them died by the manager. They were partners in crime, the witnesses too. If even one of them turned himself out of guilt, he'd be in big trouble.
でも死体なんか隠したってバレるよ、いずれ。それより正当防衛ってことでちゃんと主張して、その
甘ったれたこと言ってんじゃねえ。これだけズタボロに殺しちまってんだぞ。過剰防衛で済むかよ。親が見たって見分けがつかねえくれいにやっちまってんだぞ、バカ野郎。
でもよ、どう隠したって監督がいなくなったのは明日の朝にはバレちまうんだ。
どうしようもねえよ。どうしようもねえのはオンドレの頭じゃいボカ。
He slapped the other man in the face. The leader had such an evil look in his eyes.
いいかボケども、俺たちはな殺人犯なんだ、殺人犯。ぐずぐず言ってりゃ5年6年食らい込まれちまうんだよ。俺らの中に一人裏切り者がおってみろ。全員が捕まっちまうんだよ。懲役をなめんな。どうせ捕まる覚悟だっちゅうんなら死ぬ気で逃げまくってやるんだ。年貢の納め時になったら好きなだけ覚悟決めりゃいいんだ。
His visage turned more and more demonic. He used the same expression the manager had just a few minutes before. Was he possessed by the same thing that possessed the manager? The 5 men started to think that way. Now that they considered it, all the villagers in the damn protest had the same expression on their faces too. The real name of Hinamizawa was Onikafuchi village. People said that wicked demons lived there, and sometimes they possessed people. The men couldn't help but to recall that exaggerated story often told by the demonstrators. The manager swung the shovel after his expression changed to that demonic one. There was no guarantee this man wouldn't do the same. In fact, he was still squeezing the hammer in his hand, glaring at everyone and threatening them. If someone suggested surrendering, he'd probably smash their head in with it.
そうだ、裏切り者を出さんためにな、いいことを思いついたわ。死体も隠しやすくなって一石二鳥だぞ。
どんな手だい？
この野郎の死体をな、みんなで仲良くこの人数で割り算するんだ。そりゃあ。
They all wanted to object to the idea. Killing him was a serious crime itself. Dismembering the body would be too much. But if anyone objected, he'd be killed on the spot. So no one said anything.
全員でバラすんだ。この野郎が日頃言ったんだろ。共同作業だよ。全員共犯だ。それでバラした部品は各自が責任を持って隠すんだ。な、これなら全員仲良くしゃんだろ。自分だけ罪が軽いから自首しようなんてずる抜けは許さねえってわけさ。
The 5 men were all taken in by his ghastly face, and they could even feel the fear of the Onigafuchi demons creep up their backs. Yup. Okay, well. It is nice that we went to a moment that hasn't been discussed much in the series about what happened here. Alright. Next is sacrifice number 1. Sacrifice number 1. The first sacrifice. A life specimen for research is required. I mean, obviously they're talking about that thing that Takano mentioned about taking bodies in and doing live experiments on, well, quote-unquote live experiments, on their brains. I was half asleep, so I didn't even hear the phone ringing nearby. After a while, I finally realized the phone was ringing. And the ringing phone means there's some kind of emergency. It's 2 in the morning. Who would even call me at this time of the night?
もしもし、入江です。
お休みのところ申し訳ございませんわ、入江所長。
It's Takano-san. She's never called me for a personal reason. At the institute, she's ranked just below me, so she's basically responsible for running it. So for her to call me this late at night, it must be an emergency.
遅くなりました。末期患者が出たというのは本当ですか？
ええ、生きた検体が欲しいと思っていたら本当に運よく。
I initially thought that she'd abducted someone. The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement. The basement! Having been tied down to the examination table, he's struggling against his restraints, but more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. I can't even understand what he's saying. He sounds angry, sorrowful, and like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's obvious that he's not in the right state of mind. Okay, so maybe I was initially right. Again, I apologize if I don't remember details well, but okay, so one of the 6 people have definitely disappeared, and this is the reason. One of them has been caught for experimentation, and they are definitely in the terminal stage, as we clearly seen with the 6 workers. It's obvious that he's not in the right state of mind.
とにかく麻酔で眠らせましょう。このままでは自分の舌を飲み込んで窒息しかねません。
もう少し状態を観察したかったのですけれど、仕方ありませんわね。
One of the staff with a white gown got the anesthesia ready. Even a normal person would struggle to escape a restraining table in this suspicious room. But this man's behavior is at an abnormal level. I am sure Okonogi-san and his friends from the Mountain Dogs are the ones who captured him. Capturing a man in this state of mind couldn't have been an easy task. According to Takano, she ran into this patient on her way home from the clinic by accident. She brought him back here, tested him, and the result came back positive. Of course, I have no intention of just believing what she's telling me. But there is no question that this man is at the terminal stage, and the live specimen is exactly what we need to research the syndrome.
一体この男は何者です？
Is it one of the workers?
あの男が持っていた新聞の包み、中に何が入っていたと思います？
これは何です？
There's something wrapped in a bloody newspaper on a tray nearby. Looking at the blood-drenched paper, I can only imagine there's something gruesome inside of it. Okay, so it is one of the workers. That is one of the body parts. Yet Takano-san looked like she wanted to surprise me with something interesting.
これはひどい。
It's a bloody right arm. The man on the table still has his. This right arm doesn't belong to him. So, who does it belong to? I'm used to looking at things like this as a doctor, but the horrible cross-section makes me want to look away. It wasn't done according to a medically acceptable method, that's for sure. It was obviously done out of cruelty.
状況から考えて、この男が切り取ったものと考えていいでしょうね。
つまり彼は近隣で起こった何らかの死体遺棄事件の犯人ということですね。
At that point, there was no way of knowing who the right arm belonged to. But next morning, the dismemberment murder of the gang construction site director was reported, and they mentioned that his right arm was still missing. So he learned who the arm belonged to. Yep.
この男、前科者だそうで、しかもその上執行猶予期間中だとか。 にもかかわらず、また罪を犯してしまうなんて。それで、殺人の発覚を恐れて、遺体を隠そうと思ったのでしょうね。
状況にもよるでしょうが、懲役数年で済むというものではなさそうですね。
入江所長も、こんな社会のクズが相手なら、解剖に躊躇はないのでは？
社会のクズがさらに犯罪を重ね、さらにその上、Hinamizawa症候群で凶暴化したのか。それとも、前科を悔いる善良な小市民が、Hinamizawa症候群で凶暴化して罪を犯したのか。どちらかはわかりません。前者ならともかく、後者ならば、彼には何の罪もありませんよ。
That's why Hinamizawa syndrome is so terrifying. We can't tell if the syndrome is the cause of the crime, or if it's simply a problem of a human nature. But what causes a defect of human nature in the first place? That was precisely Iria's area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals only be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? If a person commits a crime because of a mental disorder, but then gets treatment, he is corrected. In other words, there are no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting the treatment without anyone else being able to understand them. In medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons, and they were either confined or killed. Centuries after, they were finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who needed treatment. Perception can change with time. Even if they are called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who are entitled to appropriate treatment. Explaining crimes through illness instead of malice. That's my life's work. Hinamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Solving its mysteries is extremely important to me. To solve those mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this without it. The A.k.a. Institute was authorized to take such drastic measures if necessary. That's why I was asked about it so many times when I accepted a position of director. And finally, the opportunity is here. This will be the first step of our research on this strange disease. But even now, I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing on this man is something very similar, but there's also something that's very different. What I did before was part of treatment. I did it to save the patients' lives. I did it so the patients could have a better future. But what I'm trying to do here isn't treatment. He will die at the end of it. Oh. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive, while I open up his living brain.
入江所長、聞いてらっしゃいます？
ああ、すみません。もう一度お願いします。
Okay, well, I don't know if this is the first time that we're hearing about this, or maybe this was a detail that I completely missed it before, in which case I apologize, but if I'm right about Satoshi being one of the patients in like the terminal stage that got kidnapped by Takano and Irie, would it mean that he died too, being researched on? Because I was thinking that maybe they are taking all these patients and they're still keeping them alive. It's just that they're you know, doing surgeries on their brain and experimenting on them, just doing the research and all that while they're still being alive. But if they die after the procedure, just to learn about the Hinamizawa syndrome? Hmm.
解剖計画書を提出し、東京に応援を要請した方が良いかと思います。何しろ、単に生きてるだけでなく、末期症状を起こしている大変貴重な検体ですもの。慎重な解剖が求められますわね。
そうですね。おっしゃる通りです。そのようにしましょう。
I mean, you know, we can be hopeful. I do believe that Satoshi has been kidnapped for research and all that. But maybe Irie, once he found out that another living specimen would be Satoshi, he was like, no, we cannot do this. We cannot kill this child for the sake of research. We need to deal with Satoshi in a different way. And thus, one could hope that he may be still alive to this day. It's just that he was confined and treated. I hope.
それまでに数日の猶予があると思います。そこで麻酔を解いていくつかの反応実験をしてみたいのですが。
危険ではありませんか？たとえ拘束を解かなくても何が起こるかわかりませんよ。
ようやく手に入った生きのいい検体なんですもの。ただ脳を覗くだけじゃもったいないですわ。
Takano-san's unusual cheerfulness made me feel odd. Maybe her reaction is normal. Maybe I'm the one who's not reacting normally in this situation. Maybe you have the Hinamizawa syndrome in the later stages and you're seeing an evil, demonic Takano who's laughing at you. Okay. I'm here only for the research, so I should be excited to have the opportunity to perform our first live dissection. Alright, time to do some operation. But I'm still hesitant. How can I call myself a researcher? Researchers of the past were brave enough to cross the line, and that's how they accomplished many things. I've seen many brains. I've operated on them. I've lost some patients too. But I never thought anything of it, because I knew I did the right thing, even when my hard work was denied afterwards. If it pained me to think of that, then I just needed to advance the field of medicine to ensure their deaths weren't wasted. That's the true form of those advancing the field of medicine. Yet, why was my heart tormented so much, just by changing the name from treatment to dissection? Does it mean I'm not man enough to emulate those great men of the past to open the doors to new medicine? That I don't have the power to develop new advances myself?
あら、どうなさいましたの、所長。お休みのところを無理に起こしてしまったので、ご気分が優れませんのかしら？
Takano is pretending to be concerned about me, but she knows. She knows I'm still hesitating. And she's telling me that I should be ashamed, as a researcher, for feeling that way. Damn! Come on, Takano. I shook my head to clear it of sleepiness. Remember the resolve that brought me here to this day. I already have blood on my hands, but if I stop now, their lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they become the cornerstones of great research. I shook my head once more and reminded myself that I'm a researcher.
いえ、考え事をしていただけです。高野さんは東京との調整をお願いいたします。日程が決まりましたら教えてください。
ええ、了解いたしましたわ。眠気も吹っ飛んでしまいますわね。
The least I can do is my best, so his life won't be wasted. If he bleeds, I can't waste even a drop of his blood. After scolding my staff for their indiscretion of discussing the dissection with such excitement, I returned to my office. Oh boy. First sacrifice, out of plenty, I assume. Alright, next. This is a huge list, by the way. Like, I am looking at this, because it said like 50 or so fragments, right? And given how each of these take like quite a bit of time, actually, like minimum 15 minutes, from what I noticed. Okay. Next is my father figure. Okay, let's go. The old guy. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words.
Ah, Oi-san, 探したんすよ。課長から手配写真の。
静かにせい。ここは騒ぐ部屋ではないぞ。
As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him.
すみません。ですね。課長が容疑者の手配写真について。
ああ、それ小宮山君に相談してくれませんかね。ちょいと私、じいさまと話がありまして。すぐに上がりますと上に言っといてください。
あ、わかりました。
Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered in.
賑やかな男だの。おやさんだったらやかましいって言ってげんこつの一つも食らわしてるところです。お前さんも少し上に戻った方がいいぞい。ここの空気は慣れんやつには合わん。そうですね。あんまりサボってると私もげんこつを食らっちまいそうです。獅子骨界隈じゃチンピラも避けて通るお前さんをツモの切り方が悪いとげんこつを食らわせてきたのは後にも先にもこいつだけだったのう。容赦のない人だったな。本当の親父よりげんこつもらった気がしますよ。本当も嘘もないわい。お前さんが本当の親父だと信じてたならこいつも本当の親父だ。
My real father passed away in Nagoya. Oh, there you go, folks. Here he comes. Another sad backstory. Be prepared. What's it gonna be? Did his father and mother, did they catch on fire? And he was sent to the orphanage. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. Okay, what is this? If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. Okay, so he was in military. If he could have rode it out another half a year or so, then the war would have been over. I was sad, of course, but I was grown up enough by then that I didn't cry into the ground like my mother did. But people feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it comes all at once as an overwhelming wave, but others feel sadness gradually, over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. When he was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he avoided the draft. And I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then, the war ended. As I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front. It finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair.
I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. But I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through such changes too. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work.
当時、私は闇米の取り締まりばかりやらされてましてね。鉄道修行駅で旅客を抜き打ち検査するんですよ。そりゃもうゾロゾロ引っかかりましたっけ。僕らのあたりはこの辺じゃかなりでかい闇市が立ちましたからね。大阪界隈からはるばる買いに来てる連中も大勢いましたよ。
After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act. But the rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there were somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through that black market. But that's another story. Oh. Okay, well this happened like a long time ago, like after the war, so quite interesting. The government didn't bother arresting these dealers, for with their money, they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Huh. I guess that is one of the big reasons how the family got so big, like the Sonozakis. I mean, they do have the mafia in them as well. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods, and even confiscated the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? Also, yeah, you know, remember like in the early parts of this chapter where there were a lot of segments where it wasn't voiced like at all? Which like it was going back and forth between voiced and non-voiced. Yeah. A lot of commentary on Japanese history can censor some stuff, yeah.
闇米は一切食わないと公言した判事が餓死したのが昭和22年でしたっけ。ひどい話でした。法律に従ってたら生きていけないことを法の番人である裁判官が自ら示したんですからね。
That prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could to survive. And he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. Mid-30s, man. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice. But that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the Food Control Act a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the injustice of that law.
米の袋を抱えた連中を次々と引っ立てて駅脇の臨時の検問所に並べましてね。
Man, and this more than likely is real history. Yeah, this is definitely a real history right over here. I don't know about the prosecutor. Is this story about the prosecutor also like real?
まるで戦時法廷みたいな感じなんですよ。次々ポンポンと没収して引っ取られていく感じです。ご婦人方みんな泣かれるんですよ。その米を買うために彼らは家財を売り払ってるんです。それを没収されたら何も残らないと。どうやって飢えた子供たちを食わせればいいのかと。
道理だな。
皆さんも敏感でしてね。駅で検問があるかもしれないと察知すると、途中で列車から飛び降りたりして逃れるんですよ。 そういう連中も逃さんと。私たちは駅近くの飛び降りの名所に重点的に警官を配備しましてね。何十キロもある米袋を抱えたご婦人をよく追っかけましたっけ。
And that was when I first met the old man.
いやー、驚きましたよ。私の親父にね、あまりにもそっくりだったんですよ。私はね、てっきり親父は名古屋の空襲を奇跡的に生き延びて帰ってきてくれたんじゃないかって本気で思いましたよ。
I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There was no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him. So, either he'd get arrested with illegal rice, or escape by ditching the rice that he bought by selling all his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy the rice to survive, so we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. So I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please throw it away. I didn't want to catch him, because I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. I was dumbfounded. Then, all of a sudden, he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was so happy to see my father alive that I couldn't hold my joy in. And the old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realized he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. A young man like me, who barely grown any hairs yet, was no match for an older man used to fighting.
いや、たっぷり説教をもらいましたよ。大通りの真ん中でぶちのめされた挙句に。普通に考えたらそんなのに耳なんか傾けないですよね。でもあの時の私はどうかしてたんです。どうしてもおやっさんが親父に見えちゃって、おとなしく言うことに耳を傾けることしかできなかったんです。
まあそこで小づいただけじゃなく、男の器量もきっちりと見せられたのがこいつの大したところだったの。今時じゃすっかり珍しくなっちまった。古き良き時代の生き残りじゃった。
Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to, and to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now, here he lies with his head, body, arms, and legs all... Damn! So this guy that he was talking about like all this time, he was the manager friend that he was playing shogi with. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy school, how to play mahjong, and with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing.
星の目星は
ねえ、もちろんついています。おやつさんの右腕ももちろん取り返しますし、この借りもきっちり返します。
They're running Hinamizawa up from the shadows, and inciting this collective crime they call the damn protests. The Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. Damn! Mother of God.